So tell us, Lawrence, tell us about the process of starting to write the script, because you've mentioned in talking about it how the screenwriting process really took a life of its own, and I'm curious what the kernel was that got the writing started.
I think it was, I've explained this in some other interviews we've done with these other people, with other people who are here, so it's going to be boring for them. But
Okay.
yeah, I don't exactly know where the idea came from, but I do know that I had been doing a lot of work. I'd spent like 5 years doing work that either didn't get produced or will get produced at some time in the future that I wasn't attached to be the director of. And so I had some money saved up, and I finally, and I just gave myself some time. I rented an office for myself and gave myself a year to write something that was more from my heart and soul, and something that was not particularly thinking about a commercial audience or anything like that. I just wanted to do art for art's sake. And I knew that I wanted to tell a story in two parts, two romantic triangles that where the actors would switch roles in the two parts. But other than that, I didn't really have anything. And I knew that I wanted to write something for Aubrey because we had talked about it, and I really wanted to work with her. I mean, incidentally, everybody that ended up being in the movie was the exact person that I wanted when we went out to cast, which is great. But yeah, I knew I wanted to do something with Aubrey. So with all that stuff floating around in my head, I just kind of started to write, and it poured out of me pretty rapidly, and it was a really fun, easy process in a way that it isn't usually, particularly when I'm working for studios and networks, and it's a much more workshopped kind of process.
Did you find that the script was flowing in a linear fashion, or did you find yourself jumping back and forth as things from the second half reflected things from the first?
No, I wrote them. I wrote them in order, and a lot of times I didn't know where the story was going myself until I would kind of leave the office at the end of the day wanting to know what was going to happen next, but not knowing. And it was always a little scary because I never knew if I was going to finish the movie because I didn't have an outline or a plan for the first part. The second part was based on an outline that I'd written 10 years ago, actually. But for the first part, there was no outline. And usually I have one when I'm writing, especially when I'm writing for, like quote unquote professionally. You have to pitch it first, and then you have to submit an outline. That's your first paycheck, is for the outline. So I always know where I'm going, and it's actually always a little more boring. You can always switch, but you have to like check with everybody that's paying you to see if it's okay. So it's more of a thing. Whereas in this one, I just I was very free about it, and I didn't really do much revision either. It just kind of came out the way it is, except longer.
Since you got the dream cast that you wanted, I'm curious if Aubrey and Chris and Sarah can talk about taking on the role, and if there were components of it that you guys worked on together that maybe sort of went further than the script started. Like Aubrey, you're also a producer, so was there parts of the character that you guys developed together before you started shooting?
No, I read the script after it was done, and we didn't really talk about it before we started shooting. A little bit, but we didn't. No, it was kind of all there on the paper when I got it.
But we kind of talked to each other during this, like when we did the show Easy together, we got to know each other, and I was I was processing a lot about you, and I think it found its way into the character in some ways.
Yes, I felt that Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Larry, wrote it with me in mind, so there were things about it that's just felt very familiar, and yeah.
I'm curious what you all felt when you first read the script. Seeing the finished film, it takes you on a really sort of intense, obviously meta journey. There's a lot of emotional truth that I think the film really allows you to connect with, but it is vague in various ways, sort of intentionally allowing the audience to make up its mind about some of the things that are going on. What did that feel like when you first read the script? For Chris, Sarah, Aubrey?
I really like that element of the script. I think it's was a fun kind of opportunity as an actor to kind of play two different parts. Even though they're not really existing outside of a totally different reality, or a reality that's not connected to each other. But I also think it was interesting because we've all, had relationships with or been involved with people who are in the industry as well, and having those intense creative relationships. So exploring those was really, it just felt really exciting. And I think we could tell from the script that so much of it, was inspired by or a riff on very personal things that have happened to Larry or Aubrey.
Yeah, the ambiguity is pretty much there on the page in terms of like, I think you constantly flip-flop between agreeing with each one of the characters and then not, and so all that's pretty rich. It's New York.
Yeah, I guess I would just add that it was, reading it and like kind of like experiencing the shift to the second half was really, really fun and exciting. It's like it's what makes the movie really special and unique, I think.
I feel like the second half, we really delve into some of the sort of like more ethical issues around running a film set. And, Lawrence, we were talking earlier a little bit about Italian cinema, but there's sort of famous instances of filmmakers who push their actors sort of beyond a reasonable limit. I'm curious if you could talk about sort of exploring that, because, more and more, I think we hear about independent cinema, it's got a lot of long hours, and it's also really aiming for, telling some sort of truth about humanity that's not necessarily always the case with a big commercial film. But that does sometimes require actors to go to difficult places to get their performance. Can you talk a little bit about what you wanted to reflect in terms of the way that the director-actor relationship works?
There's a couple layers going on here. I think the first of which, let's say, is like a personal layer where, I'm a little more comfortable now with who I am and my career choice and stuff like that. But, until really recently, I was very ambivalent about what I had chosen to do with my life, and the sacrifices that I felt that I had made and was making to be an artist just didn't feel worth it. I mean, so I could go more deeply into that, but I'll just let you, I don't want to go on and on. But so there's that layer of just that art sometimes feels, or being involved in a career in art just seems sadomasochistic in certain ways. And so I think the movie's exploring that through this. I guess my relationship with my creativity is sort of strained and tortured, so that's reflected in the work. And then as far as director-actors go, this idea kind of ballooned from a casual comment that a friend of mine made. A friend of mine was an actress, and was dating a director who refused to put her in his films. And I talked to both of them privately. I was friends with the director and both people in the couple. And the director was like, she's so I'm going to put her in my films so she can, I guess, basically dump me and move on to the next director. Like, no, this way I'll kind of keep her dangling. And it was such I won't say who the director was, but it was such a
I
dark,
really want you to.
It was really dark. Listen, if I hear you're working with him, with the person, I'll let you know. But I doubt it'll happen. So that was just dark. And then on the other side of it, the actress was annoyed and irritated that he wouldn't give her a chance. And she was this struggling actress. So their bind kind of made me come up with this idea for a film where the director decides to put his partner in the movie that's an actress, and to torture her, to make it torture for her. And that's what kind of blossomed into the second half of Black Bear. So I don't know. I feel like am I afield or?
Well, I guess it's also a good question for the actors. Like Sarah, Aubrey, and Chris, you've all probably been in you've worked with very different directors. So Sarah, I'll start with you. Do you find it helpful to have that kind of, let's say, to have a director who will push some limits to get you to an emotional place? What are your thoughts on when you really need to, I guess, give a performance and you're finding that the director really needs to sort of push you a little bit?
I think when the first kind of real auteur that I worked with was David Cronenberg, and when I shot the first time I shot with him, I think I was like 21, so I was pretty young, and I think I shot like a scene, and then I went up to him after. He was like, "Okay, moving on," and I went up to him and I said, I was like, "Oh, was that? Are you sure? Was that good?" And he looked at me and he was kind of like, "Well, do you think you can do any better?" And I just remember like kind of in that moment thinking like, "Oh, right, like I have to be secure in my own performance." And working with him, he really pushes his actors to be really autonomous. And so I think that pushed me in a way to be more of an autonomous actor, and that was kind of how my process really started to form, was kind of working with and then so I think when I would work with other directors, it was almost like I didn't really I wasn't searching for their approval. I was really just searching for what I wanted to achieve in that scene, and understanding and feeling comfortable with that. So I don't think that I'm looking for a director to necessarily, I don't know if push is really the word, but I always feel like it's best that I really trust the director, especially when you're doing something that's very vulnerable. And if anything, it's just that if you're both on the same page, I think you're both just like very, very present, witnessing each other, and they know when something isn't false. They know when something's false. And that's really when I'm working with the director that I feel like is really on the same page or really paying attention to the work. I feel like it's always a matter of like, it's not necessarily them pushing me or coercing me into a place. It's more just like they know when something's false, and then they're going to help find it with me.
Aubrey, what about you? How does the relationship, especially trust with the director, play out for when you take on roles that are more dramatic?
Well, I absolutely want to work with people I trust, and trust is huge for me. I find it very hard to work with people that I don't trust or respect. But I would say, since I was a young child, when I watched the DVD extras of Pollock as a young girl, and I saw Ed Harris throwing furniture at Marcia Gay Harden, I said, man, that is what I want. I want to be in a fucked up situation where someone is throwing things at me. But for real, I think I am drawn to kind of sticky situations, and I feed off of that in a way, but I would say that's something I'm working on in therapy, and I would say that I definitely prioritize trust over psychological warfare, although I do think that's, you know, sets for me are cathartic in a lot of ways, and I'd say whether I like it or not, the director always becomes this kind of like, you know, parental figure in my unconscious mind, where it's like I'm mad at them, but I want to please them, and I want them to feed me, and I don't know, it's like fucked up. So I think there's like elements of that in every situation I find myself in, but I've never worked with anyone that's, you know, fucked with me too bad, because I'll just fuck with them right back, and I'm very, very ready to play mind games with anyone, so just try me. But I think also, like, with this movie in particular, I have made movies with my partner, just as Larry has, and I think it's a different dynamic when you're working with someone you're also in a relationship with, and like those relationships are very complicated, and those dynamics can become very complicated, and it's all interesting to me. So I think this movie was just, it was just laying all of that stuff out there in a way that it was like just really, really, really exciting for me and interesting for me to explore, because I am fascinated by all those kinds of nuanced dynamics.
Chris, I'm curious, because you have to actually identify with this character that you're playing, how getting into the mindset of playing a director sort of affected the way that you think about how directors work with actors. Did this reflect any kind of experiences that you'd had? Are there things about it that allowed you to sort of justify the actions that he takes?
No, I mean, this is obviously dramatized a bit, so I at least haven't had a situation like this. There are purposely cliches in, you know, like some of his actions, but cliches are cliches for a reason, because they've happened often before, right? So they all come from somewhere, like stories that you've heard, and, you know, we've all heard, you know, quote unquote nightmare stories of director-actor relationships that have kind of gone down these very dark paths. I mean, I've had, in terms of getting into the mindset, I mean, you know, whether it's firsthand or secondhand knowledge, I have enough, had enough, you know, information to kind of go off. But, you know, in terms of like the manipulation aspect of it, for me, I think, you know, I'm not really for that. I think especially once you're doing the job, like you're there to kind of work together on something, and it took me a while, but like to kind of get rid of the idea of like a hierarchy in that dynamic, because I think it can kind of cripple you once you start feeling like the director is your boss. You know what I mean? And you need to please. Like, you're there, once you're there doing it, it's like, okay, like you're all there together, and we're all doing our individual jobs, and yeah.
I feel like I'm less, I felt, especially on this shoot, but always, that I'm less important than the actors. You know, it's more like NBA coach's relationship to his like star athletes than a boss. I'm just there to help if I can.
I know you guys had a bit of a shortened actual shooting schedule because of the fact that you always had to shoot at night. did that sense of urgency affect any way that your process works, Lawrence?
I think it did. You know, I think I'm really sensitive. I'm like a really sensitive person, not in the good way of being sensitive to other people's feelings, but sensitive in that my own feelings get hurt easily, and I'm sensitive to lack of sleep, lack of creature comforts and things like that. So I think that it made me a lot like patience was a real struggle for me on this shoot, and I think like the lack of sleep had a lot to do with it. It was a lot of effort to keep my attention good and my energy up because of the overnights. And I do think there was a sort of tense, eerie atmosphere that was internal as well as external. So it definitely affected my mood, and I can't see how that wouldn't have in some way, A, been shared by the other people, and B, been, you know, sort of leaked out into the general atmosphere because a lot of eyes were on me. In some senses, I was the leader, not necessarily of the cast, but of everyone else.
I'm curious if you have any advice for, you know, an audience of students who will one day hopefully aspire to make a film like this, what your own self-care is when you're, you know, in all of these conditions, making something with limited time, trying to keep it all together and being in charge of the whole production.
I think they would be better advising me. I have no capacity for self-care whatsoever.
You jumped in the lake a bunch.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The lake was there. Thank you, Aubrey.
That was your happy place.
There was. Every morning I would wake up and swim for a bit in that lake, and I would bathe in that lake. Actually, I'd bring some soap down, and I was careful not to be seen by anybody. You know, held the towel up to the last minute and slid in and bathed in that lake and swam in it in the morning. And then after we finished, I would jump in again. And it was a sort of, yeah, that was helpful.
So this advice is only for these future filmmakers who happen to shoot a movie right by a lake.
Yeah, I mean, I also had a mantra that was like, this will be over at some point. Like, this will be over. This will be done at some point. This will be done. You'll be living a normal life. But I wouldn't take it back for anything, but it was hard. And when you're doing indie shoots, that's keeping your shit together is hard.
Good shoes, you know, Steven Spielberg's advice. Sneakers.
I mean, yeah, also
gotta get good sneakers.
If you cast and hire good people, that's a good relief. That's a big relief. You know, I mean, this movie could have so easily gone off the rails if these actors weren't amazing. You know, it could have been a total disaster. So cast well, hire a great DP.
Well, you also
great AD.
You found a particularly evocative location too. I feel like that adds so much to this movie. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful spot. It came at a cost because it was really remote, and you know, didn't have access to creature comforts, didn't have access to good food, no Wi-Fi, no cell phone service, not really a town that had even a grocery store. Like the closest town was like an hour away and had, you know, some store with like a bag of chips in it. So it came at a cost, but I think the locations is beautiful, and I wish that I could have like hung out in it more, but we were always going. There wasn't much time to relax, for me at least. And probably not for these guys either.
I'm curious to see how things change in terms of the way that sets are run, particularly for independent cinema, when you don't necessarily have the backing of Disney to bring on all the kind of additional insurance and COVID protections and stuff like that. On a film set, particularly of an independent film, what as an actor would the three of you say is like the absolute must-haves, and what are the things that don't necessarily help with your performance, but and could maybe be sort of streamlined. Because the idea of having a smaller crew is something that we're working through a lot right now with our student productions. And, obviously it's nice to have creature comforts, but if you're shooting in a location that's only got the one gas station, you're sort of forced to rough it. So what is the most important thing for you, let's say in terms of something that helps you do your job when you're on set, that's indisposable? I know that might be a really vague question, so I can try and.
I mean, I feel like it's good leadership. I think it's really people, I think, more important. I mean, as long as you have a bathroom, although I've been on sets where they've been like, and another announcement, there is no bathroom at this location. And you're like, what the fuck? I mean, have a bathroom somewhere. But other than that, I feel like it's just everyone, it's just an attitude thing. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think smaller productions are where it's at. And I think in terms of COVID and the next couple months of production, like I don't know, I feel like independent films are going to thrive in that environment because they're used to getting things done with a smaller amount of people, and everyone has a different mentality on independent film shoots where you feel it's all hands on deck and everyone's there because they want to be there and they're to do something together. So I think maybe it's just a good attitude, because as an actor I feel like if I feel like I'm in good hands, even with the the PAs that we're working with, it's like it really makes a difference. It allows you to kind of just focus your energy on what you're about to do and not worry about whatever bullshit's happening at the location that you're on. So I think it's really just an attitude and like a mentality and like a willingness to work together, I feel like is of utmost importance. And snacks, you have to have good snacks. Even if the less money you have, the better snacks you gotta have. You just have to have snacks and coffee. You just have to.
I think there's like one of the harder things to control, but like especially if you're like roughing it on a film, but like time efficiency I think is a nice thing, right? Like I feel like there was often many times over the years where it's like if I could have just slept like one more hour, that would have been huge. You know what I mean? And just like, and it's of course like it's out of most people's hands, but I think that's something.
I've been on both sides of that. I've been on both sides of that issue, and it's a hard one.
It is. No, I know, and I know it is, because there's always like many things at play.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking personally.
Me too. I agree. It's nothing's worse than being called to set like 5 hours early.
Yeah.
You're just like, what the hell? I could have had some time to relax and brought more to the scene.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily like an onset thing, but one thing that I feel like always gets so independent film is the rehearsal time beforehand. And I know it was something that I really like pushed for, and I think I like definitely forced us to like sit down and read through a lot of stuff. And I know I like asked Chris and Aubrey to sit down and read stuff too on our own time. Just because I find it with like in terms of my process really, really helpful. But I think sometimes the mentality on an independent film is like, oh yeah, like we're just gonna go and we're gonna figure it out. And it's kind of like, well, I think especially with like the lower budget films that I've been a part of that I feel like have really worked, is that it's people actually talk things through and rehearse it, whether or not that's actually like rehearsing the lines or just talking about the scenes or just spending time together ahead of being on set. Like all of that extra stuff pays off, I think, big time when you get to set and so many things are out of your control and time is of the essence and everything's a pressure cooker and you never have enough time to do everything that you want, or something fucks up and so you only get to do 2 takes of something. I feel like that is really, really important and something that you can do remotely. Like for me, rehearsal is not important in terms of blocking, but learning how the people I'm going to work with communicate, how they listen, what they don't like, their temperaments. Like even just those little things make set so much easier. You can do that on the phone or on your own time. You don't that doesn't necessarily have to be paid for rehearsal.
Was there a big switch in terms of what you could do with rehearsal when you went from the intimacy of the first half of the film to then suddenly having this sort of much bigger cast to accommodate?
I think we mostly read through the first half of the film. Like that's kind of what we spent time actually. Like we did then get together. I guess that it's true. We did get together and read the back half as well. But I think we spent a lot of time focusing on the first half, right?
Actually, you and I did some rewriting of the second half, Sarah. But then all that stuff got cut.
But what did you cut?
Just some scenes that didn't work out, man. I mean, the rough cut was like 2 hours and 45 minutes long, so a lot got cut. An hour of stuff got cut. But that's normal.
I'm curious, in your writing, how are you towing the line between writing from personal experience, but also writing something that's also a structured, sort of dramatic piece of art? When you were writing this as such an intimate piece, are there times where you had to sort of back away from it being too directly connected to your own experience?
No, I didn't back away from anything. And when I wrote this, like I said, it came out in about, I think it was about a 3.5 month period or something. And I did very little rewriting. The only rewriting that I really did was with the actors. If they felt lines weren't necessary or even scenes weren't working or understood, that was kind of like our only rehearsal. And some of it was done remotely and some of it was done when we were all together. But I made some cuts and changed some lines, and so most of really my only like notes that I got, and this was by design because I was so sick of getting studio and then network notes. Not that those don't have a place, so please keep hiring me. I'm not difficult to work with, but I was pretty, irritated at that point by stuff. Sometimes stuff just gets workshopped to death, and I just wanted to have this movie to have like a first draft kind of vitality to it.
It seems, I was rewatching the trailer, that there's really you're keeping the meta aspect of it pretty much a surprise from the trailer. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how you're marketing the film? Because as I was saying earlier, I would go to see literally any movie that you make, but I'm curious to know how you're reaching a wider audience, because the way that it's cut suggests one film and then we get this big surprise halfway through.
I'm just really glad that's someone else's problem. Okay. I have no marketing ideas, not one. I'm the least capable person of marketing, particularly my own work, than of anybody in the world. I think Aubrey's kind of savvy, and I think maybe you had some ideas. You had good ideas about the poster and the trailer and stuff. I kind of was just like, this looks good. I mean, I was worried about revealing too much in the trailer, but I think we thread the needle effectively, I think. I mean, I'd love for an audience to come in and know nothing, that there was any sort of filmmaking aspect to this movie at all, and be completely shocked by the second half, which they were in our only in theater screenings at Sundance. I think was the ideal way to see it, but I understand that you need a trailer. So that was a big concern. And all I did was show it to friends and Aubrey and her team and stuff, and talk about, like, are we showing too much?
Well, Aubrey, tell us about your role as producer and how these kinds of decisions, work when you're both, starring in the movie and then also handling some of the more business-oriented parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a natural kind of movie for me to take on as a producer as well, just because after I read the script and, you know, thought about what we wanted to do, it was definitely, you know, I did it knowing that I was putting myself in kind of a vulnerable situation, and I really wanted to create an environment where we could really go there and dive off the deep end. And so I think there's just an element of kind of knowing that my like opinion kind of matters, you know, even after we're done production, and just in who we're hiring and who we're getting, you know, who we're building on the team, and just little decisions like that, I think were really important for me for this kind of movie. And I thought it, you know, I think it was very clear to me that Larry and I were really on the same page about, you know, what our vision was for it. So it was a very organic process. And I would say, you know, our other producers, Julie and Johnny, from Tandem Pictures, they were great and allowed me to kind of take off, you know, stop thinking about that kind of stuff when we were shooting, because obviously it's hard to do both, to be thinking about, you know, those things, but I didn't really have to. But I think there's just a sense of just a kind of, for me, producing is a lot about, you know, kind of creating an atmosphere and a kind of culture on set, and just kind of like paying attention to things and anticipating things that could be problems, and just things like that. So I don't mind. I kind of like that kind of stuff, and I think I've always kind of like gravitated towards those kind of roles. But it's definitely a lot when you're in a movie and you're thinking about those things too. But I think it's just all about the team that you have. Everyone's kind of allowing each other to, you know, be artistic and kind of get into their own space, but then also, you know, we're getting shit done and dealing with the budget and all that stuff. So it's just a lot. But I think I think just post-production wise, you know, I didn't have that, you know, it was nice to be able to be involved in, you know, the post process, and to have my opinion, you know, be, you know, out there and in whatever way, whether it's used or not. Like it's just, it feels like you're really, you know, you're helping get it to the finish line.
How is the film reaching audiences? Is it going to play in drive-ins, or are you going to put it in the theaters that are open? Are you going straight to streaming?
I don't know. I should find out the answers to these things. I know it comes out on December 4th, and I know that it comes out online on December 4th. And I think it's still going to play some theaters, which I don't understand where these theaters might be. And if they were somewhere where there was low COVID, that those would be the places where people would want to watch Black Bear. But
I went to see Kajillionaire at the AMC Orange. So,
okay.
You know, just saying, there are still screens for independent cinema.
Our movie's coming out in theaters.
It is.
You know, in LA, New York, I think, and then on demand. But
maybe I should find out more specifically. But anyway.
But drive-ins, I don't know. We're doing a drive-in screening, I think, right.
December 1st, we're doing a drive-in. I think that's like a preview.
The ArcLight drive-in. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be in theaters somewhere, and then also
online simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's in select theaters December 4th. So we'll just have to make sure that we tell everyone. We can always update that by the time we do the live broadcast of the movie with students. Hopefully I think that's a couple of weeks from now. So hopefully we'll be able to announce where it's opening.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope that we can eventually bring you all to campus. I mean, for your future projects, because we do have some beautiful theaters that, you know, Lawrence, you're very familiar with at this point.
I can attest. Yes. Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah.
The Annenberg? No.
No, it's the USC Eileen Norris theater.
Oh, the Eileen Norris kind of.
Yeah, which is the School of Cinematic Arts at USC.
Right.
Yeah, I really hope that we'll get a chance to do something in person at some point. And please always feel free to consider, the film school a destination for your movies. I think you guys are all really phenomenal with this movie, and it's a shame that we can't do it in front of a live audience. But in the meantime, we're able to take advantage of having people join us from different parts of the world. So thank you, Sarah, for coming in from Toronto. Chris, are you in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aubrey?
LA.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're
LA all day, baby.
That's right.
We're all in our bubbles.
hopefully not for not too much longer, but in the meantime, at the very least, thank you all for.
You heard about this spray that they're spraying up ferrets' noses and it's keeping COVID out?
What?
Swear to God, man. New York Times. Look it up. They're spraying spray up ferrets' noses and it prevents them for a full day from getting COVID.
Ooh.
It's cheap and it's inexpensive to manufacture. So
What's in this spray?
good thing could be over. What's in it? What do I look like? A guy who read more than the headline? I don't know what's in it. I read the headline.
Clorox bleach.
Did you learn this in your QAnon meeting?
New York Times, man, look it up. I'm feeling good about this spray. Seriously.
Ferret spray?
You just want to put something up your nose.
They got to test it on something.
But so Sarah,
The ferret that makes it illegitimate? The DNA is like one thing removed from us, I hear.
Is it?
will it work on
Probably
other,
says in the article.
other members of the weasel family? Can we grab some possums? I'm really curious if you're all already back on set. Sarah, I know you're about to go shoot something next week.
Mhm.
What about Aubrey, Chris? What do you see yourselves diving into film production right now?
No, man. I'm diving deep into hobbies.
I've been so close to shooting something like over the past couple of months. Like I've gotten so close. I've literally had my bags packed and ready to go, and then it just explodes. But
Yeah.
but I'm whatever. I'll get there. But
I was supposed to be doing a movie now, but everything I had
yeah,
The
got pushed.
ferret spray.
Same.
Man.
January. Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah.
be working in the new
I
year.
I worked one day on Sarah Cooper's comedy special, and it was very apparent to me that I need to work soon because it was one day and it was a broad comedy like SNL sketch, and I was just really taking it to a level that was inappropriate. Like it was just, I need an outlet really badly right now.
Sarah, is Canada accepting the American diaspora now?
Yeah. Come here.
Oh, it is? You're taking us?
No, we're not.
We talked about driving to Vancouver for Thanksgiving. No, for Christmas.
I mean, I think you can. Actually, I don't know.
It was presented to me as a plan that could happen.
Well, people are working in Vancouver. Man, if I could be in Vancouver right now, I'd do anything. Lucifer, Supernaturals. They got a lot of shows up there.
I would direct up there.
Will you please do an episode of Lucifer? Like,
Yes, I'm available. I'm tech avail.
let's all just do one arc on The Good Doctor. We can all just do an arc on The Good Doctor.
Yes, I would love to play a doctor.
I'll be patient.
All right. Well, I hope you get that chance, Aubrey.
Thank
You too.
you.
Thank you guys so much for spending the afternoon with us. And of course, it'll be a couple of weeks before we air this, but congratulations on the movie. And, hopefully you guys are able to get back to work soon and stay safe.
Awesome. Thanks,
Bye.
thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
San Diego.